Have you noticed that since turning 60, you're wide awake at 3 or 4 in the morning for no apparent reason? Maybe you roll over, stare at the clock and realize you're up hours before you intended to be. You might try falling back asleep, but your mind starts racing, or your body just can't settle down. By the time morning arrives, you're exhausted, frustrated, and wondering if this is what you have to live with now. The truth is, you're not alone. Many people over 60 experience these middle-of-the-night wake-ups, often chalking it up to just part of getting older. But there can be real solutions, practical, science-based tricks that help you sleep through the night or at least handle these early awakenings in a more restful way. In this video, we're talking about 3 simple approaches you can try right away if you regularly find yourself awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. They may sound surprisingly doable, yet the impact could be life-changing. Picture Mary, a 64-year-old retiree who used to sleep like a rock until her mid-50s. Then she started having these oddly timed wake-ups, usually around 3:30 in the morning. Sometimes it'd be a hot flash, other times just restless thoughts, but either way, falling back asleep felt impossible. Her days became a cycle of fatigue and short tempers, all because her nights were so fragmented. Doctors told her it was normal for sleep patterns to change, and she tried accepting it, but she just couldn't shake the feeling that there must be something she could do. That's when she discovered a few targeted adjustments to her evening and nighttime routines that changed her life. She wasn't necessarily aiming for the perfect 8-hour sleep block anymore, but these changes gave her more restful nights and a greater sense of control. Before we dive into these methods, remember, I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering medical advice specifically for your condition. If you have any serious sleep disorders or health issues, consult a qualified professional. Still, what you'll hear here are widely recognized strategies that have helped many older adults get back to a healthier, more consistent sleep rhythm. If you're tired of the 3 a.m. wake-up call, stay with me until the end, because you might discover an approach that transforms your nights from frustrating to fulfilling. A good place to begin is to recognize why this 3 a.m., 5 a.m. wake-up often happens. The human body has a built-in circadian rhythm that changes over time. As we age, we tend to produce less melatonin, the hormone that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. And we can become more sensitive to environmental or psychological triggers that disturb our rest. Stress and worry can also rear their heads in the pre-dawn hours, turning a brief waking moment into an extended period of tossing and turning. Hormonal shifts, aches and pains, even household noises or temperature fluctuations, these small factors can add up. Also, many older adults have more disrupted evening schedules, such as going to bed too early or failing to prepare the body adequately for restful sleep. The first trick is surprisingly straightforward. Track your evening habits for a week and then methodically adjust them. This might sound too simple, but many people go to bed at a set hour without examining whether that bedtime is still appropriate for their changing body. Perhaps you're crawling under the covers at 9 p.m., only to wake up at 3 a.m. because your body has had 6 hours of sleep and thinks it's time to start the day. Or maybe your bedtime routine includes intense or stressful activities, like watching anxiety-inducing news right before turning in, that keep your mind too stimulated. The idea is to become a detective in your own life. Write down what time you actually crawl into bed, what you did in the hour beforehand, and how you felt upon waking. Do this for at least a week or two. Once you see patterns, you can make targeted changes. For instance, if you discover you're falling asleep by 9:30 but waking at 3:30, try shifting your bedtime 30 or 60 minutes later. Of course, you have to balance that with your morning obligations, but if your schedule allows, pushing your bedtime back might reduce the chance of an ultra-early wake-up. Another aspect is pre-bedtime stimulation. If you watch high-drama TV shows or scan social media feeds full of heated debates, you're revving up your nervous system. Instead, consider activities that promote calm, like reading a gentle novel, not something too thrilling, listening to soothing music, or practicing light stretching. Even a warm bath can help lower your core body temperature afterward, signaling to your body that it's time for sleep. Also examine your caffeine and alcohol intake. Many folks over 60 find that coffee in the morning doesn't bother them, but if they sneak a cup mid-afternoon, it lingers in their system longer than it used to. The same goes for alcohol, which might initially feel relaxing, but can disrupt sleep in the second half of the night. If you notice a pattern in your notes, like every time you have wine with dinner you wake at 3:30, then that's a strong clue to adjust or eliminate that evening drink. By methodically shifting your bedtime, curtailing stimulating content, and reducing or timing your caffeine and alcohol intake, you can often see a decline in those 3 a.m. awakenings. It might take a couple of weeks of experimentation, but many people find this routine-focused approach leads to fewer sudden wake-ups, or at least shorter ones. The second trick is all about reframing what happens when you do wake up. Sometimes the anxiety or frustration of being awake at 3 a.m. is what solidifies insomnia. You might glance at the clock, realize it's way too early, and start thinking, I'm going to be so tired tomorrow. Then a cascade of stressful thoughts ensues, preventing you from drifting back to sleep. Sleep experts often recommend a technique called the quarter-hour rule. In essence, if you've been awake for what feels like about 15 minutes, don't watch the clock too precisely, as that can stress you out further. You get out of bed and do something quiet and relaxing in another room. The idea is to break the mental link between being in bed and being awake and frustrated. You only return to bed when you feel truly drowsy. Of course, the older you get, the less appealing it might be to shuffle around the house in the middle of the night, but the principle remains. If you lie there panicking or forcing yourself to sleep, you might create negative associations with your bed. Instead, calmly step into a different setting, maybe your living room with a low light on. Engage in an activity that's not too stimulating, like reading a calm passage or listening to soft music. Avoid bright screens if you can, because the blue light from tablets or phones can further disturb your circadian rhythm. Once you feel your eyes getting heavy, return to bed. Over time, this trains your mind to see the bed as a place for sleep, not for worrying or restlessness. There's also the matter of mental chatter. Many older adults find their mind drifts to worries about health, family, or finances at 3 a.m. One approach is to keep a small notebook somewhere accessible. If anxious thoughts swirl around, jot them down briefly, as if you're putting them aside for later consideration. You can also use simple breathing exercises, like inhaling for a count of 4, holding for a second, and exhaling for a count of 4, to coax your body into relaxation mode. The essence of this second trick is that you stop battling the wake-up with frustration and use gentle redirection techniques instead. That shift in attitude can sometimes be enough to make these awakenings shorter, less frequent, or easier to recover from. The third trick involves strategically using light exposure and, in some cases, supplements to reset or reinforce your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. As we touched on earlier, melatonin production declines with age, and your internal clock can drift. You can partly combat this by ensuring you get bright, natural light in the morning. If you wake at 3 or 4 a.m., you might wait for dawn indoors without exposure to daylight, and that doesn't help your body figure out the correct schedule. So, as soon as it's reasonably bright, open your curtains or step outside for a few minutes. That morning light sends a powerful signal to your brain that it's time to be awake, which can, over the following night, help you sleep more solidly. If you rarely get outside because of mobility issues or weather concerns, consider investing in a light therapy lamp specifically designed for circadian rhythm regulation. Use it in the early part of your day for about 15 to 30 minutes. As for supplements, many seniors wonder about melatonin pills. While these can help in some cases, especially if you have a phase shift sleep pattern, they're not a magic pill, and you should discuss them with a doctor. Another supplement people explore is magnesium, known to help with relaxation. However, you need to be cautious about interactions with medications or certain health conditions. Some folks also try herbal teas or natural remedies like chamomile, passion flower, or valerian root, though the evidence on their effectiveness varies. The big point is that you can use external cues like light, mild supplementation, or even temperature regulation to guide your body back to a more stable pattern. If it's always too warm in your bedroom, or your blankets are too heavy and you wake up drenched in sweat, that's a factor you can address. Cooling the room slightly might help you stay asleep. These changes may seem minor, but for many older adults, every small advantage counts when dealing with tricky nighttime awakenings. Let's talk for a moment about expectations. When you're younger, you might be used to sleeping 8 straight hours without stirring. As you enter your 60s or beyond, your sleep architecture naturally changes. Even if you employ all these tricks, you might still wake up briefly here and there. The goal is to shorten that wake-up window, reduce the stress and anxiety around it, and gradually push your sleep schedule into a more comfortable range. Some older adults find that a split sleep pattern, historically known as first sleep and second sleep, might even feel natural once they stop panicking about it. But for those who truly want to sleep through, from bedtime until the early morning, these 3 methods, adjusting evening habits, reframing nighttime awakenings, and leveraging light or mild supplements, can be powerful. Now, let's consider what happens if you try these tricks and still find yourself wide awake. That's when you might consult a sleep specialist to see if something deeper is going on, such as sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome. Chronic pain can also sabotage your sleep, so if you suspect a medical issue, it's worth investigating. The worst thing you can do is ignore a persistent sleep disruption that leaves you exhausted, thinking there's no solution. For many seniors, addressing these root causes can not only improve sleep, but also enhance daily energy, mood, and overall health. You might also discover that certain side effects from medications you take at night are interfering with your rest. Reviewing your prescriptions with a doctor could reveal that a different dosing schedule or an alternative medication helps you maintain a stable sleep cycle. It's also wise to pay attention to mental and emotional factors. Sometimes older adults feel more anxious or lonely at night, and those feelings can surface in the wee hours. If that's the case, consider small steps to boost your mental well-being. That could range from gentle yoga or relaxation apps to socializing more during the day so you don't carry a sense of isolation into your evening. Some people find journaling or gratitude exercises helpful right before bed, focusing the mind on positive reflections rather than worries. Even something as simple as a brief phone call with a friend in the early evening can improve your emotional state so you're not lying awake with troubled thoughts. Let's get back to Mary's story. After she discovered these 3 tricks, she started going to bed a bit later, 10:30 instead of 9:45, so she wouldn't be awake so long if she popped up at 3 a.m. She also created a strict wind-down routine, no intense news or social media after 8 p.m., a quick warm shower before bed, and a few pages of a relaxing book. She set the room temperature slightly cooler than before, and made sure any nightlights were dim. And in the event she still woke at 3:30, she would slip out of bed, go to her living room, and read a dull magazine with just a small lamp until she felt her eyelids getting heavy again. Within a month, she found she was waking less frequently, and even when she did, she fell back asleep faster. She also started opening her curtains wide once the sun rose, letting her brain receive that strong morning light cue. The result was a smoother pattern that left her feeling more refreshed, and she was far less anxious about those occasional nighttime awakenings. Others have found success with mindful breathing or gentle stretching in bed if they wake up. Instead of lying there feeling trapped, They make the experience slightly more active, focusing on slow, deep inhalations and exhalations, releasing tension in their muscles. This prevents the mind from getting stuck on negative or anxious loops. If that fails, the quarter-hour rule can be the fallback. By rotating through these techniques, many seniors realize they have more tools at their disposal than they ever thought. Instead of helplessly accepting a 3 a.m. wake-up, they approach it with a calm plan. And that sense of control alone can be enough to ease the mind. Of course, daily exercise also plays a role. If your days are largely sedentary, your body might not be physically tired come nighttime, making you more prone to restless or light sleep. Something as simple as a 20-minute walk or gentle chair exercises can help burn off the energy that might otherwise keep you stirring at odd hours. Just be sure not to exercise too close to bedtime, as that can raise body temperature and alertness, potentially delaying sleep. Some experts advise finishing any vigorous activity at least 3 hours before you plan to hit the sack. That way, your body has time to cool down and transition naturally toward rest. Diet is another factor. If you tend to eat a large dinner late in the evening, your digestion might interfere with uninterrupted sleep. Likewise, sugary desserts or snacks can spike your blood sugar and then cause a crash that wakes you up. Observing how your meals affect your sleep might reveal a connection you've never noticed. You could try an earlier, lighter dinner and see if that helps you sleep continuously. And don't forget about hydration. Drinking too much water right before bed might lead to a trip to the bathroom at 3 a.m., which can easily turn into a prolonged awakening if you're prone to racing thoughts. It's also important not to measure your entire well-being by whether you sleep a perfect block of 8 hours. Focus on how you feel overall. Are you maintaining adequate energy for your daily tasks? Are you in a generally positive mood during the day? Some older adults find that 6 or 7 hours of decent sleep, complemented by an afternoon rest, might meet their needs better than forcing themselves to stay in bed for 8 or 9 hours. Of course, if you're chronically exhausted or moody, that's a sign to keep exploring. But if you occasionally wake at 3 a.m. and it doesn't ruin your day, maybe you can treat it less like a crisis and more like a mild inconvenience. The key is responding constructively rather than spiraling into worry. Let's briefly summarize these 3 main tricks so you can try them. First, track and adjust your evening habits. Move your bedtime if necessary, reduce intense media or content before sleep, and be mindful of caffeine or alcohol. Create a wind-down period that sets the stage for rest. Second, reframe nighttime awakenings. Use the quarter-hour rule. If you're awake too long, get up calmly and do something quiet until you're sleepy again. Practice gentle breathing or note down worries to free your mind. Third, leverage light cues and possibly mild supplementation. Let morning sun reset your internal clock. Consider a light therapy lamp if you rarely see natural daylight, and talk to a doctor about melatonin or magnesium if appropriate. Each approach is relatively simple, but together they can significantly enhance your sleep quality and reduce those frustrating 3 a.m. periods. This isn't a magic wand. Results often come from consistent application of these strategies over a few weeks. Still, many older adults find that even partial improvement can make their lives so much better. When you're not groggy all day or dreading bedtime, everything else, from enjoying time with family to tackling errands, feels easier and more fulfilling. That's what we're aiming for. A sense of balance where sleep supports your daytime vitality rather than sabotaging it. If you try these methods and still struggle, consider seeking a sleep study or specialized help. Underlying conditions like sleep apnea, restless legs, or significant anxiety disorders may require targeted interventions. There's no shame in that. In fact, properly diagnosing and addressing these issues can lead to improvements you never thought possible. At the same time, be patient with yourself. Sleep can be elusive, and the older we get, the more delicate our nighttime rhythms can become. But delicate doesn't mean hopeless. It just means we need to be more proactive and, in some cases, more creative. I hope you'll take a moment to reflect on which of these tricks resonates most with you. Are you going to adjust your bedtime and wind-down routine? Maybe you'll try that quarter-hour rule tonight, or start opening the curtains wide as soon as the sun's out. The best approach is to pick 1 or 2 changes and test them for a week or 2. Jumping in with everything at once can make it tough to see what's actually working. Keep a small journal or use a simple app to track your progress so you can celebrate improvements, however small they might be. Many older adults find that just seeing they slept 10 or 20 minutes longer can be very motivating. Thank you so much for listening. If you found these tips helpful, you might consider sharing them with a friend or family member who's also grappling with restless nights. And if you haven't already, please subscribe or follow so you don't miss future videos where we explore more ways to age with energy, confidence, and a sense of discovery. Remember, waking at 3 a.m. doesn't have to be your permanent reality. With the right understanding and tools, you can reclaim your nights and face your days with renewed spirit. Until next time, stay curious, stay determined, and I look forward to hearing your success stories. Let's make those 3 a.m. wake-ups a thing of the past, or at least something far less daunting. Sleep tight, and I'll see you in the next video.